Hey everybody, we've started the process of wiring this thing up, and my plan is to get it done this weekend. So I'm going to walk you through what I've done, and then I'll come back with an update. So you'll see I've got my filaments connected. This is the 12AX7, and I've got pins 4 and 5 jumped, and pin 9 going to the filament winding. You'll see it's twisted. Comes over here to the 6v6 GT. Again, twisted, pins 2 and 7. And you'll see I have a jumper coming over here to this terminal block, right here. And I've got two 100 ohm resistors on either side. And from here, it goes to the dial lamp. These 200 watt resistors, 100 ohm resistors that are in here, are a kind of a hack that I found, which will reduce hum on the chassis. So basically it's going from each leg of the 6.3 volt filament winding to ground. And that should reduce the hum quite a bit. And we're going to plug this thing in a second and see how it works. This wire here you'll see is the center tap for the 6.3 volt winding, which I don't need, so that gets capped off. This wire here is a leg that comes off of the 5Y3 tube. This is the 5 volt rail, and this will actually connect to the circuit board that I showed you. And then these wires here are from the output transformer. I haven't connected them to anything obviously yet. Okay, so my little hack for this one are these 100 ohm resistors, and we're going to power this thing up and see what it looks like. So let's do that. Just to show you how I'm setting this thing up, I have the actual amp plugged into a dim bulb tester right there, and I've got the dim bulb tester plugged into my Variac. Okay, so we're going to power this up, and we're going to bring it up to 40 volts right there. Let's see what happens. Bulb's looking good. I don't see any bright lights. That would mean there's a short. And you'll see we do have a bit of a bulb here. So let's let this bake for a second. Let's see if we have any heater lights yet. Nothing that I see. Let's crank this up to 90. Let's be adventurous today. There's 90. My bulb still looks good. My pilot light's gotten much brighter. Let's see if we have any heaters yet. There's one. So our 6v6 is lit up. Our rectifier tube is not quite there yet. And I also see lights on the 12AX7. That's great. Let's just see what our rectifier is doing. I think it probably wants a little more voltage. Let's go up to 105 and see what we get. I think I see those heaters starting to come up to life here. My 6v6 is looking good. My 12AX7 is looking good. Now we're just waiting for those lights to come up on that rectifier tube. That's obviously going to take a little bit longer, I would imagine. This thing should be heating up any second. Taking a long time for that tube to light up, isn't it? And remember, that's not the 6.3 volt filament. That's coming off of the 5 volt tap. Let's take a look under there, see what's happening. Okay, so I've got the two yellow wires there, and I've got my my red high voltage wires. Everything seems to be connected. Of course, we're not going to stick our hands in there while it's plugged in, right? Let's take a look around the front again. Tube is cold. Let me stop this and I'll be right back. Okay, I've turned the power back up. I've got my 12AX7. I've got my 6v6, and I've got my 5Y3. And what I have here is a bad cold solder joint on that tube socket. And this is, my friends, why you check this stuff before you go any further. make sure your filaments are working, make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to look. And this way when you start getting everything in, you don't troubleshoot backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the power off on this thing. By the way, I'm up to 115 volts, so this thing's holding pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and power this off, and I'm going to disconnect those leads to that 5Y3 tube. I've just turned it off. And we're going to take a look and see what's going on there and clean that up. Right there. Okay? That green wire you see is just the ground, that's not connected to anything. So I'm going to clean those connections up, and then this thing is going to be ready to continue to populate. I shall be back. Okay folks, more updates here. So you'll see that I've got the output transformer mounted correctly now on the top of the chassis. I've also installed a 3-position switch right here, which is going to be my 4 ohm and 8 ohm speaker. That's going to be here. I'm going to use the variable ohms that's available on this output transformer. And if you look here on the top, you'll see I've got some screws there. There's 1, 2, 3, and there's one right there. And let's turn it over and see what they're doing. Alright, so what you'll see is I have these standoffs installed right here. And I've taken my board and I've separated them by the tube side. So, for example, right here is the 12AX7 side, and here's the side that goes to the 6V6 GT. And the way this is going to work, if I can get this untangled, is this is going to sit right on top of these standoffs, just like this. Screws go in the sides, right in the top, holds it down, then I just have to route the wires very neatly and get them to the right tube sockets. So that's how that's going to look at the end of the day, once I have it all screwed down. So my next step here is going to be to mount that board to the standoffs. Then I'm going to clean up the wires and connect them to the corresponding tubes, pins on the tubes right here as well. So I'll have to trim these back, and then I'll make the rest of the connections. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back. Just to show you some progress I should say, I've got the board mounted, so that's all in nice and secure. That's not going on anywhere here. I've got all my wires run to my 12AX7. Well, everything's connected, and you'll see I've got the wire going to the volume knob here, and there's an orange one. I'll show you on the wiring diagram what that is. So this 12AX7 is all connected everywhere that it needs to be, and you'll see that connection goes up to the volume knob. That's what I'm showing you there. I've also connected the 6V6 everywhere that it needs to be connected. I still have one more connection here, which is for the output transformer. I haven't put that in yet, but I'll get to that soon. And that's these wires right here. Okay. Aside from that, I've got a couple of other spare wires that have to go into the inputs, which are right here. Here's 1 and 2. So I've got those. And then I have to connect the speaker output. And then this is the ohm selector switch, 4 ohm and 8 ohm. I told you that in the earlier video. So I'm going to keep plugging away here. As you can see, I'm trying to be extremely neat, and so far I'm succeeding. Hopefully this thing will be nice and quiet when I'm done. We'll find out. And I'm going to keep plugging along. Okay? I'll be back. Okay, this is going to be the last segment for this video, and then tomorrow we're going to wrap it up and hopefully power this thing up. So just to recap, this board's been mounted. All of the connections have been made to the 12AX7 tube. All the connections have been made to the 6V6 tube, and that includes the blue lead that comes from the output transformer. I've also connected the red wire from the output transformer, and the brown one, which I don't use, I capped off and tie wrapped it for a second. I've also taken the center tap for the 6.3 volt filament lead, which I'm not using, and capped it off and just attached it here so it doesn't flop around. And then lastly, I've connected my input jacks. Here's my secondary and my primary, and you'll notice that there's a 1 meg resistor that goes between that connection. Looking at the schematic, that's right here. So here's my first input, second input, and they've got a 1 meg resistor that goes to ground. Obviously this thing is grounded to the chassis, right? So that's how that works. Lastly, all I have to do now is hook up this speaker output and then wire in my ohm selector switch, and that will be with these wires right here that come off the output transformer. So we're getting in the home stretch, and these are the only 4 wires that are left right now. This comes off the circuit board that I created, goes to the speaker, and these are from the output transformer. But what I'm going to spend the rest of the time doing tonight is just going through this thing from start to finish, make sure I've got everything connected correctly, and then tomorrow we'll have the big send-off party. Hopefully this thing will work. So no power is coming on this thing tonight. That's the story. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video, which should be tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night. This is Ron.